Hi, I'm Steve Theodoropoulos. I was a former Federal Air Marshal and a state police officer here in the state of Florida as a trooper. I had an unblemished police career for 20 plus years, unblemished, until I testified against Federal Air Marshal Supervisors. You may have heard about the story of the Jeopardy game board. I am the person who took that photo. The photo has now come back to the forefront because there's a report out there by the Department of Homeland Security. This board was used in the Orlando office for racial discrimination. Managers targeted African Americans, gays, U.S. veterans, Hispanics, and any person who filed an EEOC complaint against managers for wrongdoing. I will be producing more videos explaining in detail how everything worked and how the TSA and the Air Marshal Service covered up the incidents. The reason the board's here is a 21-month review, not an investigation, was conducted by the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General's office. Senators and congressmen had requested a full investigation. There's a major difference between the two types of reports. It is clear that major violations had been identified by the inspection team, but nothing was ever done about that, even when laws were violated. I am asking my president, the President of the United States, to get directly involved. Mr. President, you were involved when an African American professor in the Northeast and a white police officer had an incident. The White House spoke out when an African American female working for the Agriculture Department and her video going viral, you spoke out. I am now involved with the largest racial discrimination case in federal law enforcement history, defending the honor and the rights of minorities, and God bless our U.S. veterans. I'm asking you, I'm imploring you to get involved. Use your executive powers to order an independent investigation. No longer allow TSA to investigate themselves and continue to cover up the wrongdoings and criminal activities. The truth must come out. It must prevail. Mr. President, you too were targeted by this agency by not having your photo in the chain of command placed in the Orlando and Tampa office. There had been reports about this. It was reported on a news program out of Tampa. It took an African American air marshal to question the authority, the special agent in charge. Why wasn't your photo being placed in the office? Why wasn't Janet Napolitano's photo being placed in the office? And I'll tell you why. It's disturbing and it would turn your stomach because you're an African American and Janet Napolitano's female. They don't like those two categories. They don't like gays, lesbians. They don't like our U.S. veterans. It's very disturbing that this type of activity would go on. But I tell you, the evidence is overwhelming. As you can see here, we have piles. My team and I have gotten piles of information in regards to this. You know why it's here? Because TSA and the Department of Homeland Security never took the evidence. My team and I have worked diligently. As a former state trooper, I'm more than equipped in investigating these crimes and allegations and getting to the very bottom and the heart of this. I wonder why TSA and their investigators couldn't find this investigation. And I'll be clear about that. They didn't want to. They did not want to find out the truth. It was easier to cover it up without written statements or sworn statements or taking video footage of it. I risked everything bringing this information to you. I was instructed by TSA I had no choice but to give up this information in 2009 while I was still a Federal Air Marshal. So here's how my team and I sum this up. The largest racial discrimination case in the United States federal law enforcement history. Who would have ever thought that this type of conduct against minorities, and God bless our United States veterans who've risked everything, would ever go on while we have an African American president and an African American United States attorney? The TSA and Federal Air Marshal managers need to be held accountable for their criminal activities and gross mismanagement. They falsified records, and no one, as Director Pistole has stated, has been fired. I ask each one of you to support me by contacting your representatives and the President to tell him, please get involved. Also, I request that my team and I be required to testify in front of Congress. My grandfather was a police officer in Sparta, Greece, and was killed in the line of duty. I'm named after him. I'm the only other police officer in my family, and I'm not a disgruntled former employee attempting to even a score as TSA attorneys or their spokesman would lead you to believe. This means much more to me. I want my family's honor restored. The Greeks have had a long history for standing against the wrongs of many. I refer back to the 300 that stood their ground against thousands because of principles and honor. Please stand with me so these men can be held accountable by the letter of the law. Here's a list of major incidents being covered up by TSA. They do not want you to know. More videos to come and more information on details about this, but I'm going to review the list now for you. Married on-duty supervisors, Federal Air Marshal Supervisors having sex in the office with married secretaries, Air Marshal Supervisors committing battery against female supervisors and attempting to show off his private parts without removing his clothes. The number 2 in charge of the Orlando office driving a patrol vehicle under the influence and covering up the crash, never having an official police report written. Providing Federal Air Marshal Supervisors automobiles for thousands of dollars below market value. We're talking about BMWs, Lexuses, Mercedes. We also have an independent federal judge's ruling stating this individual who got promoted for providing these automobiles later got promoted over minorities who were much more qualified to do the job than he was. TSA covered up, leaving major documents out of their official inspection report of 2009. How do I know this? I have the main eyewitness's 12-page sworn statement and his daybook in my possession that he kept detailed notes about the incorrect misconduct and criminal activities that regularly took place. This wasn't even mentioned in the Department of Homeland Security's current report. Falsification of time records, supervisors, training staff taking off weeks at a time, getting full pay on the taxpayer dime. More to come on how they cheated you out of that money. Supervisors not being certified to be air marshals, falsifying the records. The lead instructor over the training department penciling in supervisors, then later getting promoted. All the while that the TSA inspectors, investigators knew this, and Director Pistole knew this because I had written him a letter outlining this. Using the Jeopardy Game Board for discrimination, retaliation, and better yet, termination of African Americans, Hispanics, gays, U.S. vets, and veterans. The TSA only handed out a simple letter of reprimand to the co-creator, and then he resigned on his own. How about the SWAT team? Loss of their fully automatic weapons, high-powered sniper rifles. No investigation was ever done. No person was ever handed out or held accountable for the loss of these weapons. A complete cover-up. This comes after 9/11, when the American public is led to believe by the TSA and the Federal Air Marshal Service, you're safer today than you were after 9/11. Federal Air Marshal Supervisors lying under oath in numerous cases to cover up the truth. I have the transcripts and depositions to prove this. All I need is an opportunity to go before the Congress to expose this secure, sensitive information. Supervisors booking flights to see family members at no cost. The taxpayers, you the taxpayer, picking up the bill. Supervisors covering up Federal Air Marshal felony arrests for one of their own. We have obtained the Brevard County court records and pre-trial diversion records where an individual was required to do community service, but yet he never missed one single day of Federal Air Marshal time. How is that possible? Non-deployable SWAT team, thousands of taxpayer dollars spent on a team that was nothing more than a show team. It never performed one law enforcement function. Violations of our U.S. veterans' rights for promotions and being hired. The major violator in this particular incident was the administrative supervisor of the Federal Air Marshal Service. TSA just recently paid this case out in November of 2011 to cover up their dirty deeds. The number two in charge holding a staff meeting and stating, quote, "No one goes against the special agent in charge and staff, and if they do, they will be terminated." I have a sworn statement from the eyewitness who was in that room the day this incident took place. Supervisors and training staff using government computers for personal gain, such as day trading and taking assessment tests for other jobs outside the government agency and scheduling police off duty for other agencies. Witness tampering, a complete cover-up by TSA Director John Pistol's office and the TSA investigation team. Violating of administrative judge's rules not to speak about the case. One of their more senior people, who was a former Secret Service officer, violated this rule. We have the supervisor from another agency sworn statement verifying this information, and we have the transcript of the court date verifying this information, and yet TSA stated no misconduct. The elements of the crime are there, and yet no one was charged. I have much more information wanting to expose the criminal activities of supervisors and the TSA and their attorneys for covering up the truth. As an American who loves my country, I have a team of people standing behind me. The question we all need to ask Federal Air Marshal Director Bray is, why have you and your supervisors not been held accountable? Why have you and your supervisors not been going to the training sessions and keeping your police standards up to be able to carry a gun and a badge? Why are supervisors allowed to be slapped on the hand with just a simple letter of reprimand, while anyone who comes forward bringing the truth of misconduct and criminal activities is removed from service, forcing agents to resign because of medical reasons and sealing cases to protect yourselves? The TSA and FAM service is morally bankrupt. Integrity is not on the high list, nor is it a priority. It's not just simply a perception. It is the reality. There is no integrity within the agency. I laughed when congressional hearings took place earlier in the week, and one manager stated that unfamiliarity breeds mistrust. Because air marshals travel so much, they don't trust their supervisors? What kind of a defense is that? Who crafted that up for you? The reason air marshals feel this way is FAM managers targeted, discriminated, retaliated, and used their color of office to promote the good old boys. It has nothing to do with being out of the office and flying to protect the country we love. The problem comes from the top down. And we can prove that FAM director, Mr. Bray himself, knew about the misconduct, and yet he refused to place his supervisors on administrative duty because they were all former Secret Service supervisors. More videos to come. Please look for them. I am addressing the Department of Homeland Security IG report soon. Please stand with me. We all knew in our job that we would always have to face a terrorist. We never knew that we would have to fight our own people defending the country we love. We need you to stand with us right now. Thank you for your time.